Well, I'm surprised. Thank you for staying around. This is good. I was expecting a far smaller crowd. For those who don't know me, I'm Greg Anderson. I'm the General Manager for the Western markets, based out of Los Angeles, but also with the responsibility of overseeing Europe, UK and the Middle East. And any of you that know Danielle or heard Danielle earlier, that's probably about the hardest part of the job, controlling her and trying to make sure she gets through trends for a full week still with a voice. But look, this afternoon, I just want to talk through briefly, where are we? I'm shifting everything. Just want to talk through a number of the Western markets and just give you a little bit of an update on some key trends. Just throw out a few points, what we're doing, why we're doing, a few things that we think you should be doing, or opportunities that we see for you to capitalise on. Where I can, I'll try and show some examples or name some of the companies that you'll see. Why is this continually changing on me? You've actually seen the whole presentation while I'm wobbling that around. I'm just going to put it down. So hopefully you can all get something out of it. So look, any questions, we'll take them at the end, or if there's anything burning or you think I'm telling a big fat lie, please just stand up and shout during the presentation. Just going to talk about mainly the United States, the United Kingdom and Europe. And you know, first of all, why are the traditional markets still of great value to New Zealand? And it really comes down to four key factors, and that is length of stay. And what you see across the board there is United States, while they stay for a shorter period of time, on a per day basis they spend quite a lot of cash, undertake quite a lot of activities, although they don't get as far around the country. At the other end of the extreme, obviously the Germans stay here for quite a long time. On an average day-to-day spend, not as high, but they do consume a lot of activities. And you know, who hasn't seen Germans in really unexpected places all the way around the country? So these are the three markets I'll talk about and try and get there. I'm also going to apologise. I did a particularly poor job writing some notes for my slides. I did them on the plane, and I wrote everything upside down, then dropped my deck. And I think I'm probably in a different order to the questions I'm going to answer. First one I wanted to talk to you about is about the UK. And everybody knows that the numbers in the UK have dropped significantly in the last few years. The slide closest to me maps out the arrivals from the UK to Australia and the arrivals to New Zealand from the UK. We are the red line, Australia are the blue line. This axis is the Australian arrivals, so 800,000. They topped out just over 700,000. We're on this scale here, our peak year around the lines at about 300,000. Quite common right across Europe. We have a ratio that for every visitor we get, Australia get about 2.1, 2.2. In the case of Germany, we do better than that. In the case of Italy, they get about 8 visitors to our 1 because of all the Italians that immigrated there. But what is the really significant trend out of the UK while we've seen all these falling numbers? And it's on the other graph, and hopefully you can hear me as I walk across. This red one at the bottom is visitors from the United Kingdom that only come to New Zealand on their trip. So if you look here from 2003, Lions Peak, and this is where we started to fall away, we've actually pretty much kept level on mono visitors. And this is what most people don't realise, but if you look at this graph here, which is the people that combine a trip to Australia with a trip to New Zealand, see the big drop away. So for us, that is the problem, that is the opportunity. So quite significant patterns. I'll be fine. You can hear me when I sort of do my random walk, you can't? Okay. Just stick them. Righty, can you hear me now? No, he hasn't turned it on. Is it on now? Can you hear me now? Do you want me to repeat that piece? Okay, repeating that piece. Reds, New Zealand, blues, Australia. Same general shape. Lions, ashes. Okay, so they're the big peaks. Both dropped away. Scale of Australia, 800,000. So peaking over 700,000. Just the start of the GFC, we peaked Lions 205. Picked up again around that period and then have dropped away. On this one, the red is visitors that from the UK that only go to New Zealand or come to New Zealand. The blue line is the visitors that combine both Australia and New Zealand in the same trip. So we've seen this huge drop away in that dual destination group. And why is that? Well, there's a big chunk of them are youth travellers. So what we've had is a huge chunk of young Brits who have come to Australia, really just exported the unemployment. What we're seeing out of Europe is very much what we've always experienced. Kiwis and Australians have flocked to Europe. You live in London and then you take those weekend trips across to Europe to have a look. What we're seeing is the absolute complete opposite. Strong Australian dollars, lots and lots of Brits and others coming all the way to Australia. And the pain for us, or the pain in this piece, is if they're living in Australia and they come across to ski or something else, they're actually captured in the Australian arrivals, not in the British arrivals. So the gap probably shouldn't be as big. We've also got the problem is through the GFC is people are taking shorter holidays, and Stewie's probably going to tell me if I'm right or wrong on that. And your average length of stay on both your dual and your mono has shortened. People can't afford to take those big long holidays, and quite frankly, the real allure is Australia, and people have said trip of a lifetime, we must combine the two. So what we've seen is a lot just shorten in, and if they're going to pick one or the other, unfortunately Australia has been the reason. You've also seen Australia with all of the new air capacity into Australia. You know, for a lot of the time they've become a lot cheaper. They've got a better year-round visitor profile than we have because they have got hot weather. But if you actually mapped out where people go, you're actually looking at places like South Australia, Tasmania, Northern Territory. All of those places that were doing really well through this period are actually performing a lot like New Zealand. So, you know, if you looked at this and you said, show me South Australians, the South Australian piece would be like that. People that come to Sydney and South Australia, it would be like that. People just can't take as long away, are not spending as much money. So what should we collectively do? Well, Danielle spoke earlier, if you saw her, we look after a lot of the resilient sectors. So looking after youth, which is great because they have the propensity to do both, and particularly looking after the retired and older sectors. So a lot of the work that will go in this year is looking at the people that we can encourage to take those longer holidays. So a real focus back into that end. We've seen also during that time, we've seen a huge drop off in a lot of the series coach product, which out of the UK was a great piece of dual destination for us. And a lot of that's dropped away, unfortunately. But what should you guys be doing? Well, look, it's all about value. You know, you've got to make sure that if people are going to look and say, let's make a decision, long, short holiday, where's the value? So work hard on it. And what you're seeing in Australia is, you know, the cities, the Sydneys, the Melbournes, the Brisbanes are doing lots of apartment stays, so encouraging people, stay for 3, stay for 5, only pay for 3. So a lot of those types of things. But look, we just got to work on it, and the deals and that will come back. Out of the UK, word of mouth is incredibly important. So please, hands up any accommodation providers here that still charge for the internet. Okay, Fergus, out mate. Look, seriously, and if you were there listening to Catherine earlier, you know, we've really got to move on, got to get with the times. We really do need to. If we want to harness social media and other things, let's make sure that our visitors get good internet service at a reasonable price or free. quickly just move on to Germany, and again we're seeing same sort of changes, different mix. If you look across this, you'll see that as we sort of headed through this period, and sorry, these are not going to be that easy to see from the back, but this purple line that drops away here is 30 to 39s, and we're looking at, and the 40 to 49s is this bluey here, which drops away. So we've got these two big segments which traditionally have been the real bread and butter of the German market for us. These are the guys that jumped in the camper vans for 30 days, ate in the restaurants, drank in the vineyards, had a damn good time and spent a lot of money. That sector of the market has really contracted. And what we've got instead is a lot of growth in the 20 to 29 and the 10 to 19. I hope not many of those drive in camper vans, but this group here. And where you see that, across on this one, is these two big lumps. This is what we've seen in terms of total holiday arrivals for those young age groups, sort of 18, 22 years, and working holiday visas. So we've seen a real blossoming at that younger end. You go back to that 44 days, that is because so many of them are down here to study, so many of them are down here to work. There's been changes in the German education system which encouraged more young Germans to travel. They got off school a year early, so away they went. So speak with Danielle, speak with Sandra, they can tell you a little bit more about it, but that's really been quite an issue. But for Germany, that again is quite a strong focus for us, is to work with these older age groups. So we'll go down here, 50-59, growing, the 60 is along the bottom, is flat. So really looking at the more resilient sectors as well as the youth to work and build on them. So what are some of the messages we've got to use in that market? Well, one of the reasons, and perhaps I'll just flick on to the next slide which will help it. You know, when we survey people in both the UK and Germany as to why they're not choosing New Zealand, at the moment we're getting expense. Well, we can't do anything about the New Zealand dollar unless we go down the Japanese route, and Nick can tell you all about how you drop an exchange rate in Japan, but I don't think the Prime Minister, who's speaking here at 4 if you wish to wait for him, and ask him how you can push down the exchange rate, we're not going to do it, but we can look at value. So be really conscious of value, because these are the two markets that are telling us it's just a little bit expensive. But how else can you address value? Well, the problem, the next piece is they say, well look, we just can't afford the time away from our jobs to do New Zealand justice at the moment. But look, that's part and parcel, because we've been telling Germans and the Brits for a long, long time that they need to come down here for 30 or 40 days and see it. So let's really make an effort when you're talking to the German buyers about saying, hey, why don't we put some shorter itineraries into the program? You know, look, let's look at some really good fly drive options that you only need to come to New Zealand for 2 weeks. And look, if we get them here for 2 weeks now, let's hope we get them back for 2 weeks later on or 4 weeks later on when the economy improves. Value, shoulder season. If we were doing the spread across the year, you know, we get this lovely peak across peak season, and more than any of our markets, it drops away. So I think the figure is about 74% come within about a 5-month period, Danielle. Whereas if you look at Australia, Germans come year round. So make sure that the German buyers you're speaking with go home knowing that it doesn't snow in the North Island in May, and you know, just make sure they understand. Cruise, one of the real biggies. You know, what's happening in that space? You can just see that it's just getting bigger and bigger, and this applies across all the markets, growth in all of them. The United States this year, estimates were over 30% growth in terms of cruise arrivals to New Zealand, and most of those cruise arrivals have come at the expense of our series coach tours. So you know, why are we doing it? Well, during the period, particularly after September 11, cruise absolutely seized the opportunity with lots of home porting. So if you're talking about the United States particularly, it became the holiday of choice. Safe, moving with groups of Americans, really easy to get on board, And they've really cashed in on never having to unpack more than once, real cheap in terms of value from when you're travelling in the States, you know, lots and lots of tours, just like what we see from Australia here. You know, you're on board for less than $100 a day. Easy to sell. Big, dedicated groups of travel agents selling cruise tours. So ease of selling. Good opportunities in terms of dual destination or multi-destinations, and some real bargains in the marketplace. So, you know, for us, collectively as an industry, it is about accepting that this is happening. It's like China, it's not going away. So how can we get value out of this huge number? I mean, this, in terms of numbers, this is what, 85, 90,000 from Australia, 35,000 from the United States. UK's growing at the same sort of level, probably 10, 15,000 this year. So Canada, the same. So what do we need to do? Fine if you're in one of the ports and you just have to work really hard to get represented in the ground excursion piece. However, if you live more than 100 miles from the coast, what do you need to do? Well, look, we've got to work harder at getting pre and post touring. If you want to know where it works really well, go home tonight and look at Alaska cruising. And you'll see that so much of what happens in Alaska is actually about the on-ground experience. And they've done an incredibly good job about it. And when the cruise lines came into Alaska and took over Alaska, and they said to the ground operators there, look, you know, we want to, the last day of the cruise, we want to run a train excursion through to Denali National Park. The local rail people said, nah, don't want to put the new train on, don't want to tidy up the coaches, it'll never sell. Your people only come on boats. So what did the cruise lines do? They went and actually built their own trains, their own coaches to go. And that's the opportunity we have. Don't want the cruise lines to put trains in, but we want the cruise lines and cruise passengers to get ashore. So the beauty for us is we're starting to see quite a few more turnarounds in Auckland, or we're starting to see quite a few more cruises either start or finish in Auckland. So we've really got to collectively target those opportunities and get pre and post touring into it. Now, you'll have a number of operators, particularly from North America, talking to you about programs related to cruise. So it might be Rotorua through to Queenstown, so sort of the old golden route. So really look and think about that. Again, a lot of it's about value, but look, just take it seriously. As I said in the earlier piece, a couple of the joint ventures we've done in this area have seen 30 and 40% uptake in people buying pre and post cruise, which is quite significant. Grand Pacific Touring, another one I mentioned, selling a lot of their pre and post, will sell a pre and post cruise package in both Australia and the UK. Great opportunity to really get some value out of this market. And it also helps if we can spread the load over what days people fly in and fly out, and alleviate some of the queues and some of the blocks into Auckland hotels. Great opportunity. The other opportunity is also Australia has a year-round cruising product. We don't. But why? Shouldn't we have people do a cruise around Australia, then come over to New Zealand for 10 days on the ground? So some real opportunities to get some money. And look, I'm standing up here saying cruise is doing well, but series coach is not dead. You will have series coach tour operators here that are doing a really good job, but look, support them, particularly the ones that are not cancelling departures, the ones that are standing hard in the market, and those that are giving good commissions are still doing very well. And when you see some of the others who are starting to get into some of the special interest areas, you'll see there's some real opportunities again back in group business and series coach tours. If you go back to the States, what are the areas in series coach tour that are really starting to sell? It's religious departures, halal departures, Hispanic departures, educational departures. In the United States, the big thing is a lot of different types of family groups. So intergenerational travel. So it might be grandparents, parents and children wanting to do the small coach experience. So think about coaching differently. So when you are talking to coach sellers, think about how you could represent your product. And particularly even on FIT, think about the intergenerational travel piece. One of the fastest growing sectors, and I missed out on this one completely, in the States, and the one everybody's targeting, is aunties taking their nephews and nieces on holidays. Rich aunties. So there's a whole lot of different non-traditional family groups that are travelling. So think about them and look at that. Again, I mentioned earlier growth in online. We can't put our head in the sand. It's happening, but where is it really happening? Well, I mentioned it, Tim mentioned it. These figures are from the Visitor Experience Monitor. They put all markets together. So this figure at the 47 really represents probably closer to the Australian and the US experience, that's between 40 and 60, 70%. Travel websites, increasing, still smaller. This piece in the travel agents is decreasing, but still a big, big part of our market. Because how do these people buy their land? So, as I said earlier, a lot of our work is about making sure that the Expedias, the Air New Zealand Vacations, the Orbits have rich New Zealand content and product. Even if they don't buy there, we need people, when they're making their decisions about how long to stay in New Zealand, to make that decision based on knowing the broad array of product. So think about it, work with them. But look, equally, the wholesale piece is still incredibly important, because the wholesalers are really motivating the retail sector to make the New Zealand holidays special. So, with a big chunk of this just air only, they're all looking to buy land somewhere else. But again, think about it. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You still do need to have good online presence yourself, whether it be through newzealand.com, whether you need to have good presence in iSight, particularly if you get business from the UK market, huge users of iSight. So, and look, you've just